This position is going to utilize a foam roll to try and create a little bit more mobility through the mid-back or thoracic spine. I'm going to start with a smaller roll. So you see this is kind of the diameter of a pool noodle, probably just maybe like 2 inches. So I don't want anything too high for this drill. A bigger foam roll is going to have me kind of hanging a little higher off the ground. Not a terrible thing to do, but it may be a little too much pressure, so I recommend you start with something small. Even a towel roll works pretty well. I'm not going to put this in my lower back, so as far as the placement of this roll, I'm going to try and stay right along where my rib cage is. So as I find, lower back down here, I'm going to come up a little higher to where I feel like my ribs are starting to connect. On females, just below the bra strap line is a pretty good marker, and that's where I'm going to begin to lay with this straight across my back. As I work my way up, I'm going to take it probably as high as maybe like the top third of my shoulder blades. So you'll see as I go through it. So lying on the floor is probably the best. I'm just going to lie on this table so you can see me. So as I put this down, I'm going to lay right across it. I'm going to start in the lower area first. You may hear some cracking and popping, which is okay. If it's too uncomfortable on your neck, you feel like your neck's kind of like this as you're doing it, a small pillow, it's not a bad idea. Okay. It is going to be a little uncomfortable because it's forcing your spine to move in a direction that typically doesn't move much throughout the day. Holding on to anything, a stick, a pillowcase, an old t-shirt, is somewhat helpful just to guide the motion. You want to have your hands in whatever position allows you to take your arms furthest overhead. So typically that's going to be just beyond shoulder width. And I'm just going to keep my arms straight and very slowly lower overhead, letting my spine pretty much arch over top of this foam roll and come back up. I may even think about my breathing with this, trying to take more of an inhale as I go up overhead, and exhale as I come back up. The only other thing to watch is that if my mid-back is stiff, my lower back is going to really arch off the table as I do this. So if anything, as my arms go overhead, I try and think about keeping my rib cage down. And just in doing that, I feel a little bit more pressure on that roll. So I don't want to let my lower back just shoot way up into the air like this. Some people, if they're doing that, I'll actually have them with their feet propped up on the edge of the couch or a chair. So they don't have to think about it as much. That automatically kind of creates a little bit more downward positioning of my ribs, keeps my lower back a little bit more flat. So propping your feet up is a good idea if you feel like your lower back is arching too much. So I would do somewhere in the 5 to 10 of these, very slow, going overhead and coming back up. And then once I get through that, I'm just going to take my body and just roll it down so the roll goes up my back a little higher. And then same thing again. So arms, same position of the arms, same thing, trying to keep the ribs down, which maybe a little bit of tension in the stomach helps with that. And I'm just slowly going overhead over top of this roll. Just nice and slow and controlled, trying to get as far overhead as I can. And then I'll move a little bit lower. And then once again, so for me, this is about as high as I think I would probably go. And you'll feel it. As you go further down, you get to a point where that roll is not really underneath you anymore. You feel like you're just kind of moving your arms or almost kind of hitting the roll. So you want to stay in a place where you feel like it's really right at that like top third of your shoulder blades. You still feel like that roll is not blocking you, taking your arms overhead. So this is a great starting point. Like I said, if this is too much, a towel roll works pretty well. I will show you a bigger foam roll option that you can progress to if you feel like this isn't enough. So this is obviously a little bigger. People have all kinds of different versions of these with knobs and pressure points and all kinds of great stuff on them. Same concept here. I don't want to take this into my lower back, so I want to stay right in the ribs. Now I can do this with a cane pillowcase, but now since I'm a little bit higher up off the ground, it becomes a little bit more awkward, but I can do it with my arms like this. I especially have to watch. This is not going to my lower back. If I feel like my neck is getting kind of sore because nothing's supporting it, I can ditch the pillowcase and I can actually just put my hands behind my head and go this way. You'll notice I try to keep my chin tucked a little bit down so that I'm not just going into this arch position of my neck. So I try and keep my chin somewhat close to my throat. So you can do this hands behind the head or stick with whatever you were holding. And same thing, you can hit different spots along the way. Once again, just watching that as I go overhead, especially now that I'm higher, I try and keep a little bit of tension in my stomach. So as I go back, this roll is meant to get my mid-back to move, not necessarily get my lower back to just arch up off the ground. Good luck.